on with Genesis 30. Um, okay, so Rachel's grief for her barrenness. Bela beareth Dan and Naphtali. Zilpah heareth God and Asher. Leah heareth Ishar, Zebulun and Diane. Rachel beareth Joseph. Jacob's new covenant with Laban, his policy to become rich. Okay, so I said that on that last one. So anyway, I just wanted to reiterate. Okay, and then Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, and Rachel envied her sister, and said unto Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, Am I in God's stead, who hath withheld from thee the fruit of thy womb? And she said, Behold, my maid Bilhah, go to her, and she will bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. And she gave him Bilhah, her handmaiden, to wife, and Jacob went in unto her. And Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, With great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. Okay. And Leah said that she had left bearing, and she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, A troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. And Leah said, Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher. And Reuben went into the days of wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them into his mother Leah. And then Rachel said to Leah, Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, It is a small matter that thou hast taken my husband, and wouldest thou taken away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, Thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he laid with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob the fifth son. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and bare Jacob the sixth son. And Leah said, God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And afterward she bare a daughter, and called her name Diana. And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her, and opened her womb. And she conceived, and bare a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, and said, The Lord shall add to me another son. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, Send me away, that I may go unto mine own place, into my country. Give me my wives and my children from whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thy eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, Appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, Thou knowest now I have served thee, and now thy cattle was with me. For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now when shall I provide for my own house also? And he said, What shall I give thee? And Jacob said, Thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from hence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. And so shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, shall be counted and stolen with me. And Laban said, Behold, I would it might be according to thy word. And he removed that day the goats that were striped, and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and the brown among the sheep, and then gave them into the hand of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar, and the hazel, and the chestnut tree, and piled white stakes in them, and made white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had piled before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs, where the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring-staked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the limbs, and he set the faces of the flocks towards the ring-staked, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flock by themselves, and he put them not into Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, when soever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. And when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in, so that the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and the maidservants and manservants, and camels and asses. Okay, chapter 31. Jacob departed secretly from Lebann. Rachel stealeth away her father's images. Laban pursues Jacob, their covenant at Galeed. And he had heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all his glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not towards him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob went and called Rachel and Leah to the field and to his flock. And he said to them, I see that your father's countenance, that it is not towards me as before, but The God of my father hath been with me, and ye know that with all of my power I have served your father. And your father hath deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times, but God suffered him not to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled, and if he said thus, the ring-staked shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring-staked. Thus God had taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-staked, speckled, and gristled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob, and I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring-staked, speckled, and gristled. For I have seen all that Lebann doeth unto thee. I am God of Bethel, where thou anointedst the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise and get thee out of this land, return to the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion of inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours and our children's, now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Paddan-aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unawares to Lebann the Syrian, in which he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had. He rose up, passed over the river, set his face toward the mount of Gilead. And it was told Laban on the 3rd day that Jacob had fled. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in the mount of Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good nor bad. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives taken with the sword? Wherefore dost thou flee away secretly, and steal away from me? Dost not tell me that I may have sent thee away with myrrh, and with songs, and with tabret, and with harp? Hast thou not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Thou hast now done foolishly in doing so. It is the power of my hand to do hurt, but God of your father spoke unto me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed that not speak to Jacob either good or bad. And now, though thou wouldest need be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I said, Peradventure wouldst thou taken by force thy daughters from me. With whomever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Before our brethren discern thou what is thine?